Sam Barber, head wrestling coach of the United States Air Force Academy. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking the time, Sam, to answer some fans' questions today.
Thanks for having us, Brian. I appreciate all your support for our program and glad our fans, were engaged and sent you some questions we could talk about Air Force Wrestling today.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously the first question always is, and there's actually two questions right away, but the first one is, how are you and your family and your wrestlers and all of your staff doing during this current COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, I think we're doing really well. I think there's some really there's some positives that are going to come out of this, and the three months that we spent at home with our families and our children and our staff, everybody on our staff, and Dustin Kilgore, he's expecting. So by mid-year next year, everybody on the staff will have young ones in their home, but I think that part of it, the family time we've been able to spend is going to be invaluable, and it's been great for me. It's been great for me and my wife to spend some time together that we haven't spent together in the past 25 years as a traveling wrestling coach. It's been great for me to be home with my 7-year-old daughter and work on instilling some values that I think are going to be valuable to her in the future, and kind of helping her through this process, both pandemic and some of the racial stuff we're dealing with. So it's been good. And I can speak for our coaches and our staff, and, they're healthy. We're employed, so that part of it, we feel like we're very, very fortunate in these times to have the support of the Air Force Academy financially, a purpose in front of us every day, a reason to get up, something to work towards, and the time that we've been able to spend with our families. And for me also, another great thing has been a little bit more engagement in my community here in my neighborhood. So it's been great.
That's awesome. All sports are really multicultural, and I'm just curious how you and your team, maybe have you had some video calls with your team and with your staff, and how are you dealing with the current racial tension in America?
Well, I think that's, when it first happened, right away, we got on the phone and we had a call, and we just kind of reinforced our message that it's always been in our program. And it's been, and it's kind of been a little bit more succinct since Charles Severi got here, but the message in the program, to echo his thoughts, is we treat people with dignity and respect, and that's to be expected within our program. And it's, if you're wearing the Air Force Wrestling singlet in public, or if you're not and in private, we expect you to live your life in those terms, right? When it comes to diversity and inclusion and race. And then the other thing is, you just don't know what you don't know, and you don't know where your blind spots are. So then we got on the phone, we called some of our athletes that, are diverse backgrounds, and asked the question, hey, are we inclusive? Do we embrace diversity? And that part of it's you're not looking for validation. It's here's the most important question: what can we do to be better in this area? And I think number one thing that came out of that is we just need more diversity on our team, and we recruit diversity every year, but we got to find a reason why maybe that we haven't been as successful. We do kind of track statistically, who we're talking to and what background they're from, and if they came to the Air Force Academy or they didn't. But and then a question to anybody out there in the social media world is hey, if you have a perception about our program, or if you know us personally, or athletes, and there's ways we can be better at this, we want to get better. So if you're a person that has you can be a resource to us, or if you have feedback for us, that's the only way we're going to be able to take this and do something with it, is if we get some feedback and find a way and look for ways how we can improve and be more inclusive, how we can embrace diversity, and wrestling's a small world, and I'm a small voice in the sport of wrestling, but it's a platform nonetheless. So what can I do to be a change agent to make the world we live in a better place for now, for future, and definitely how do we instill some, or be a good role model for our athletes and send them into the Air Force, right, and into the world, into their communities, and make sure they're going to perpetuate the right type of environment, diversity, and inclusion. So I think the biggest thing for us is we're open to the conversation with our team. The feedback has been that we're on the right path. I think the bigger question is well, that's not enough. How can we be part of the solution then? If we feel like we're doing things well in our program, how can we be part of the solution at the Air Force Academy and the Air Force, in our community, and just better future leaders and men period.
Right. Fantastic. Glad to see you're having those conversations, and glad that it's opened up. It's not just a team thing. It's an academy thing. It's an Air Force thing. It's a nation that we need to have those conversations. So that's great to hear. I do have one more question about kind of how your season ended for you had seniors who graduated rather rapidly. Just tell me how they handled it all when they kind of found out that, okay, now that there's no more wrestling. We're strictly going to graduate from the Air Force Academy and move on. How did they handle that?
Yeah, I think the class of 2020, United States Air Force Academy of Wrestling is a really special group of young men. We had 8 seniors in our program. All 8 of those young men are, and I think they look more like probably the majority of the cadet wing population than anything, right? But I don't know the wing like I know those 8 guys, but those 8 guys are extremely resilient. They're extremely talented. They're extremely hardworking. Driven. So really for them, it was a little bit disappointing for Randy Manyweather, who found out the 11th hour that he was going to be an alternate. And then as things continue to go, with a few athletes dropping out of the NCAA tournament, he's in the national tournament, right? So it's disappointing for Randy Manyweather, who finds out right at the end that he has the opportunity to go to the NCAA national tournament and represent the Air Force Academy and compete on the biggest stage of our sport. But even that with him, his purpose from day one at the Air Force Academy was he came here with service on his heart, and he wanted to be a pilot, and he wanted to wear, a flag on his left sleeve and Air Force over his chest, and he wanted to defend and serve his country. So, and him like Garrett O'Shea, Marcus Amico, Tyler Reederholt, Jordan Wengren. I forget one of these guys' names, I'm in trouble. Jake Kurtzels. But all 8 of those guys were really special as far as like their commitment to our core values at the Air Force Academy, their desire to serve, and their commitment to excellence. They lived out our core values in everything we do. All those guys had great point averages. And again, like that great point averages, great MPAs, great PEAs. 2 of them were distinguished graduates, right? Marcus Amico became, I think he was outstanding graduate in political major. And 8 for 8 of them are pilots. They got pilot slots. So that group, there's very little that could probably shake that group up. And they handled it in stride. And we in wrestling and in the Air Force Academy, we talk about adapting, adjusting, and overcoming. And we talk about the circumstances won't become bigger than the mission or our goals. So our core values on our team value card, I think our cadets live into those values, those 8 guys specifically. And and we had some conversations. There were some tough times at the Air Force Academy, and we got together, and the conversation was, Coach, we're doing fine. We're going to get through this. We're looking forward to what's next. We're going to graduate from the Air Force Academy. We're going to become officers, and we're going to get to do what we love, fly, fight, and win for the Air Force. So they're a pretty special group.
That's a great attitude. A couple more pandemic-related questions from the fans. Is there any guidance, and I know you can't really speak to this because it changes daily, sometimes minute by minute, but guidance so far from the NCAA and from the Air Force Academy on how the pandemic could affect the season? Because wrestling is really a sport where 2 people are pretty much in contact the entire time.
Yeah, I think, the only guidance we've got is the Air Force Academy Athletic Department has recently just came up with some guidance on a 4-phase approach on how we're going to return to play. And I think that part of it, we're going to wait and see what that looks like. But it's a 4-prong approach. And what I like about that is it's a plan. It gives us something we can look at, and we can start to say, hey, okay, how do we interject what we need to do into this 4-phase approach and get our guys back to, doing what they love to do, and that's wrestle on the mat. So there's a plan in place. It's a 4-prong plan. I think we're going to have the advantage of having time on our side. The fact that most of our cadets are working their way back through the summer, and we're going to have everybody back here by mid-July. Having that extra time to go through that 4 phases is going to put us in a place where I think we can get to training on the mat sooner than maybe our competition. So, and I think that part of it, it's like wrestling has been dealing with these type of issues since its inception, right? So I think some people think wrestling is an anti-social distancing sport, but we're one of the only sports out there that goes through medical checks daily before competition and practice, right? So we're used to, making sure that we're healthy, skin infections, any of those types of things. We have to be healthy because we have weight management. And if you start restricting your calories and you're not getting enough sleep then you're going to get sick, right? So from that point is our sport is probably in a place to adapt additional procedures, whatever they might be, if it's taking your temperature check and, washing our hands a few extra times, or again, like we've already been doing that stuff. We already wash the mats 3 to 4 times a day because of other precautionary measures. So we're really in a good place as a sport. And I know it seems like people on the outside that don't participate in it, again, it'd be a really tough situation for us. But the reality of it is that we already have a lot of this protocol in place for other reasons. And this adding COVID-19 to the list of other things that we're proactive about and precautionary about isn't going to be that big of a deal. And we live healthy, we eat healthy, we train. Sleep's important. We keep ourselves clean because that's important. We keep our gear clean. We keep our facility clean. So we're already doing largely everything we need to do to have a safe and healthy environment for our athletes to come back to the mat. The fact that they touch each other means nothing. I think the most important thing is that you have a healthy population that's sensitive about, staying healthy, being, using good hygiene, and, doing the things you need to do successfully on and off the mat. And that's sleep, eat, hygiene, health. We do those things already. So that part of it, I know it's a bit frustrating, to be honest with you, because I think public perception is wrestling is going to be a risky endeavor in a COVID-19 pandemic. But my personal experience with it, again, in the ways I just outlined to you, is that we're in a great place. We're in a great place to return to play because we're used to the protocol. We already do it. A lot of it's already in place. There's going to be small adjustments we'll make, but once we get a healthy population and we make sure we got guys that are COVID free, then we already do the right things.
Right. You make a very good argument there, and thanks for clarifying that. I'm sure that'll help a lot of people with that. One of the unfortunate situations with this COVID-19 is that the summer camps got canceled. And one of the questions was, will you be running any youth camps? And I know you do some things with youth and wrestling throughout the year. So what are those efforts looking like?
Yeah, I think we'll talk about this a little bit more today, but we're a mission first program, and we support 100% the mission of the Air Force Academy and the larger mission of what we want to do in the Air Force. So as we continue to echo those thoughts of being a mission first program, sports camps, as much as we'd love to have people on our beautiful campus, and we'd love to bring them here and share our core values with them through the sport of wrestling, we also don't want to put the wing at risk, as an ascension pipeline for future officers in our United States Air Force. So unfortunately, the bigger picture of what we need to do as an institution and what the mission is of the Air Force Academy, producing officers for the Air Force, we're just not going to be able to, bring large groups of people on base this summer, as we drive forward. And I think people understand that. And I know that that's great that there's a market and a product and a desire to come to the United States Air Force Academy and be part of our world-class wrestling program at summer camps. But unfortunately, we're going to support the Air Force Academy this year, this summer, as in making sure that next spring we commission 1,000 officers for the Air Force.
Good call. Another question is, when do you anticipate the 2021 schedule to be released? And I know that's probably a really fluid situation too, but we've heard from other coaches and how cuts are happening and certain matches may be postponed to another year. What's your situation look like?
We're in a pretty good situation from the standpoint, again, when we were going through schedule, we started doing scheduling in March, and we were a little bit delayed because we didn't get our Big 12 assignments until a little bit later this year. But I anticipated there's, you can kind of you saw what was happening right away with a few of our Big 12 programs, and you just knew there were cuts coming. So when we made the schedule, I kept 2 dates off. And so I don't think we're going to make any cuts. We made some adjustments in the schedule. We're committed. The Big 12 is committed to all 8 of our dual meets, home and away. So you'll see four dual meets, home at United States Air Force Academy, Big 12 conference, 4 away. We have a 5th home competition with Western State and New Mexico planned. So the schedule, the Big 12 teams this year, man, I don't have it in front of me. I know we're going to Oklahoma State, West Virginia's coming here, North Dakota's coming here. We're going to Wyoming. We're going to Northern Colorado. We're going to Utah Valley, and South Dakota State's coming here. I believe that's 8. So that's our Big 12 schedule next year. We're hopeful that the All Academy tournament survives. We're committed to going there to wrestle Army and Navy. That'll be the opportunity to see them. We're going to head to world-class or some of the best competition in the country, the Southern Scuffle. We hope to head to the Navy Classic. There's some good competition there. And the Appalachian State Open, the Cowboy Open, traditionally is our opening event. Will be there again in Wyoming. So a duel with Cal Poly. We've been doing home away with them. So there's right now we made the cuts going in. So the schedule should be pretty secure. I think for us, depends what's going to happen nationally. If some of those Eastern trips aren't going to have the same teams and it's not going to be the same high-level competition we're used to because of other schools' budgets, we're not going to be reckless with our resources and spend those if we're not going to get the RPI and coaches the opportunity to wrestle national ranked wrestlers. That's what we're looking for. We're looking to wrestle a schedule that's going to prepare us for the Big 12 championships, which is 100% on. The Big 12 is going to have a championship in Tulsa like we have every year, if the environment allows it when we get to that point, and then preparation for St. Louis and the NCAA tournament. So that's the schedule. It's more or less done, but I don't think it'll be officially released until we get approval, and I think it'll be a while before we get official approval, just waiting to see what the future brings. So I think that's it. If we learn anything about COVID-19, it's be patient, be flexible, and be able to adapt and overcome. And so as of today, that's our schedule. That may adjust.
Right. That was more insight than I was expecting. So thanks for that. The fans are probably happy to hear that. So let's get into some of the kind of nuts and bolts things. One of the questions is, what are the challenges of competing in the Big 12 conference? Obviously well, no, I'll just let you speak to it. Sometimes I put words in coaches' mouths, and I don't want to do that.
I just can't say it's a challenge. It's an opportunity. It's like we get to wrestle in the second best conference right now behind the Big Ten, and we're gaining on those guys every day, right? So we get to wrestle in the second best conference in the country. We get to be the only school out of those 12 schools. We're the only school in that conference that offers a world-class education, an opportunity to wrestle at an extremely high level. It gives you a guaranteed job in the Air Force, where you get to be part of something bigger than yourself and servicing your country. Nobody else in the Big 12 has that. We get to be that school that world-class academic institution that has all the benefits that come with an Air Force Academy education of service in the Air Force, an opportunity to be part of something bigger than yourself, the world-class opportunities that you get here at the Air Force Academy. You get to fly planes and jump out of planes. Like, nobody else in the Big 12 has that, right? Nobody else in the Big 12 gives you a paycheck. Nobody else has a roster of 45 guys where every single one of them is getting a full ride scholarship to wrestle Division I, the Big 12, get a world-class education, do what we do. So there's just no disadvantages. We get 20 hours a week just like they do. So I think the opportunity is finding athletes that want to compete at that level. They want to be different, right? They want to balance all the things we offer. That's what makes us different. Is like, if you go to any other institutions, you just don't have the same demands on your time. And I don't. That's not negative recruiting. I don't believe. I think it's just the truth, right? So for us, it's finding guys that aren't afraid of the challenge of sharing your time with academics and leadership along with wrestling, and making a big picture life decision and coming to the Air Force Academy, because we have world-class coaching staff. We have advantages. We have a world-class coaching staff. We have the Olympic Training Center. We have a thriving RTC. We have Army WCAP. From a wrestling standpoint, the resources we have are greater than what our competition in the Big 12 has. Now, we just got to find the right athletes that can embrace those opportunities, take advantage of those tools, use them, um, and get to the next level. And I think we have those athletes in our program right now, and you start to see some of that this year, and a couple of results that I could point to. So that part of it, and I know it's just, I think people, you can say delusional, you could say it's, I'm just saying what I got to say, but I'm not. I'm just never going to look at the opportunity to be in the Big 12 and say it's a challenge. It's an opportunity. It makes us unique and special. There's no place I'd rather be other than the Big 10 until the Big 12 catches them, and then I want to be back in the Big 12.
Right. That's great attitude. One of the questions is about you personally and your coaching, but you've been at the Academy for over a decade now. How have things changed for Air Force Academy Wrestling in the time that you've been here?
Well, that's a tough question a little bit, because it's like everything's changed. The Academy's evolved and, become, we've just had different leadership, and different superintendents and different comms, and each one has came in and left their impact, their footprint, and they made the place better for the next person, right? And I started here with Joel Sherritt, and he took over an incredibly rich story tradition from Coach Wayne Bachman that did an incredible job here in 27 years, produced 3 All-Americans and an NCAA national finalist in Evan Hoy. Joel Sherritt took that program and did what he could do to improve it from when Coach Bachman had it. Coach Sherritt left it in a great place for me to take over and hand off. And I think the biggest thing that we've done and the change we've seen is, and this has been driven by the landscape of Division I wrestling, has been the regional training centers. So I think that part of it, the board we put together, we have an incredible board that is our RTC board. Our executive director, Doug Wells, is passionate and driven and makes a major impact. The rest of the board, Mr. Brett Axton, Dax Cornelius, Tom Becci, AJ Werner, Jose Quintana. So, Corey Sanchez. We have an incredible board of passionate people that create an RTC where we can have, the best athletes in the world in our room, in our partnership with the Olympic Training Center. So I think that part is where in the 10 years, that's been a major change, is the RTC. And I think that's provided opportunities for athletes that they haven't necessarily had in the past. And again, that's just because that wasn't the landscape of what we did. Coach Bachman, RTCs didn't exist. Coach Sherritt, RTCs didn't exist yet. So there's been a steady progression where when Coach Bachman took the program over from Coach Kitt, right? Each coach has done they've made improvements and it's got better. So we've improved. There's no doubt about it. We've improved. A little bit hard to see with some of the metrics, because as we've gotten better and we put a better product on the mat, the competition's gotten better too. So I think that part of it, I think if you look at if you took watch video on a wrestler from 10 years ago and you watch video from a wrestler today, the product is a better product. But that's just because of the foundation that was laid by Coach Kitt, Coach Bachman, Coach Sherritt, myself, that we were able to build into that, and the resources that our guys have. That's a big deal. And then the athletic department's changed too. The AFAC has been instrumental in providing resources for us. So Dr. Hickson's done a great job. We've had great leadership. Dr. Mew, going back to Dr. Mew, he did amazing things, amazing support. He had the athletic department in a very, very tough time at the end of his career, and he got us through that, right? He got us through sequestration, handed the keys over to Mr. Knowlton, who again raised the bar for Air Force athletics to a higher level. And now Mr. Pine and Ms. Block are continuing to raise that bar and lead us towards excellence and living out our core values at the Air Force Academy. So I think that's in 10 years, if you just look at the people, the personalities that we've had in leadership roles, each one of them, if it's been either wrestling, if it's been our administration, senior administration up on the Hill, the dean, the comms, the soup, or the athletic leadership we've had in the athletic department, every single person that we've had here is, came in with pure passion and elevated the entire academy. The entire academy is in a better place than it was 10 years ago, and probably fair to say we're in a better place now than we were 7 years ago in the inception of the Air Force Academy, right? It's that type of place where you have great people. They're drawn here.
Certainly are. You mentioned metrics a second ago, and Jack Carta, a 2015 grad and alum, wants to ask you, what metrics do you use to measure success in Air Force wrestling?
Yeah, Jack Sarda. Jack Sarda is, he was a team captain for us, did a great job, a relentlessly hardworking guy, and he's doing great things in the Air Force right now and in the medical field. So appreciate the question, Jack. Thanks for staying connected to the program. I think the metrics, Jack, that we use are obviously, you can't have goals unless they're measurable. So every one of our goals we have is measurable. And the metrics are we being a mission first program? So 8 seniors, 8 pilots. The Air Force wanted pilots, we sent them pilots, right? 25 guys on the dean's list. 5 years in a row now, we've had an APR in the top 10%. This year we had a 1,000, a perfect score in APR. So academically, athletically, 2 distinguished graduates. So I think there's a lot of data there that says, we don't have athletes on conduct probation. We don't have athletes on honor probation. We don't, so there's avoiding those pitfalls too, right? We're recruiting the right people from a character and integrity perspective. So it's not like you have to shift their mindset when they get here. We're looking for the right people from day one. So, and then quite, frankly, the goals of the program are to produce NCAA All-Americans, Big 12 champions, and beat Army and Navy. And we're not doing that right now. We're not where we want to be. So that part of it, I think, is you work backwards from there. We're not where we want to be. And we got a strategic plan that has 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goals, 10-year goals. And we're working that plan. And now, is there progress? Yeah, I think there's metrics in place to say there's progress, right? We had 4 guys medal at the Big 12 championships this year. It's a program high, RPI coaches rankings. We had 6 guys ranked in the coaches ranking this year. And that's a program high in recent years since the inception of the Big 12. And I think that's the hard part is like, how do you look at the WAC compared to the Western Wrestling Conference, compared to I think MAIC is what it used to be back in the 70s, to the Big 12, right? So that's the difficult part of the metrics is like, well, the landscape's not the same either. So, but the standard's the same. The podium at the NCAAs has 8 steps on it, and that hasn't changed. Since we had NCAA national championships. So that metric hasn't changed, and we're not there yet. So that's the direction we're trying to go. Those are the metrics of the program. We're strategic in our planning. We're strategic in our evaluation of what we do. We just, that's one of the things that we've really done a good job at during this COVID pandemic, Sam, is we went through we do it annually, but it was different this year to go through our evaluation and see where the program's at and where it's headed and what do we need to do to get to where we want to go to achieve our goals.
Right. That's good. Here's a question that a lot of coaches may not even know how to answer. This is, how is coaching wrestling different from coaching any other sport? I don't know if you ever coached another sport than wrestling, so not sure, but
yeah. I coached women's softball for a year out of college, and that was a unique experience for me. And I played 4 sports in high school. I played 3 sports in college. So, I do have a background of kind of the differences in sports. I'm not a sports fan. I'm a wrestling fan. So that part of it, I don't have a professional sports team I follow or that stuff. So I don't. But I am a student of the sport of coaching, right? And so that part of it, if it doesn't matter if it's, Coach Calhoun or Dabo Sweeney, I'm paying attention to what those guys are doing, best practices. I think we have some of the best coaches in the country at the United States Air Force Academy, and I could list them all off. But Coach Corey, Coach Gobrick, Coach Calhoun, Coach Territory. I look at every single coach in our program, all 29 sports. They're mentors, role models to me, and people that I'll selfishly and steal best practices from. I don't have a problem taking a great idea from one of our coaches. So my friends, my social circle, they're all coaches, right? I just don't have very many. I don't know if I have a couple, but very few friends that aren't in the coaching profession. So my conversations are all around coaching. So I don't know. I guess I wouldn't separate wrestling from other sports, right? I wouldn't separate. I think coaching is a profession. It's an honorable profession. It's a selfless profession. It's an opportunity where you get to pour into other people. It's finding ways to bring the best out of individuals and help them pursue goals that they've set for themselves that they wouldn't be able to achieve by themselves, right? And sometimes that's one-on-one, and sometimes that's for me, most importantly, the change I can impact is creating a culture. Creating a culture, and then making sure there's great individuals around that culture. We have a lot of great mentors around our program, and Colonel Tiernan and Colonel Ramsey, that pour into our program, our alumni, local businesses, USA Wrestling. Making sure Dwayne Goldman, who's involved in our program, Kevin Jackson, Joe Russell, surrounded, that's the key. I think a huge key to leadership is surrounding yourself with great people and surrounding the people within your organization with great people. So that's coaching to me. And I don't know, when you get into the X's and O's, it's still sport, right? And think of that part of it. It's still competition, and the mindset to step on the mat versus step on the court or the field. A lot of similarities. Probably the major difference is that as a wrestling coach, you're just the expectation is professional and just the expectation of sport wrestling is, if you're a wrestling coach, that you're on the mat wrestling. And as you get a little bit older, where I'm at, that it's just really hard to do. I can't be on the mat and wrestle with the guys every single day. And that's one thing that's very different, is that there's an expectation that if you're a coach, that you're going to be hands-on the mat, wrestling with your athletes, every day. And that's just not the same. You just don't see Coach Calhoun putting on the pads, right? He's not putting on the pads. Coach Saratory's not putting on the pads and mixing it up with the boys. That's not what he has to do. But, on the days that I do that, man, I got to get ready, mentally and physically. And the day after I do that, I can feel it, So that part of it, I think, that part's, incredibly different. I don't think it's healthy for our sport, because I think you can know wrestling, and I think you can have a lot of value in the sport of wrestling, especially run an organization, be a CEO of the Air Force Wrestling Organization, right? I think there's a lot more important skills to have with that than there are, if I can go in there and put it on guys. And I've been saying this forever. It's like, I've been doing that for 25 years, and those guys stay 18 to 22, and I just keep getting older, So, man, it was good when I was 26, 27, because I was putting a whooping on those boys.
Yeah, a little harder now. A
A little tougher now, Yeah, the old synapse with with your brain is telling your leg to move and it doesn't move. It's a lot different, And when Randy Merriweather puts you, crushes your ribs, it, and that part of it is a lot different. So coaching's coaching, leadership's leadership, that part of it. Being a wrestling coach, the combat sport, brings a few, some of that stuff I love about it. It's, it's very, very, it's one-on-one, right? There's nobody on the left to your right to you that if you don't have success, the ownership that you got to have. So there's obviously reasons I've been drawn to the sport of wrestling that make it different, but those are the reasons I think everybody knows. But I think it's, and I, admittedly 100% biased opinion, but it's the man's oldest and greatest sport.
Yeah, I hear you. What advice do you have for a 2021 recruit during this pandemic? And even maybe the cadets coming in, they're going to be in the basic cadet training. It's going to look entirely different. Maybe they won't be able to get to the mat and do, a person-on-person workout right away. So what kind of advice can you give those newcomers?
Yeah, we've had, we're going to have, I think by the end of this, 6 Zoom calls with our newcomers coming in. Because we know, right? We know we're not going to see those guys to like we traditionally have in intramurals. So we're building those relationships. We're getting those guys connected now. So that part of it, but anybody, it doesn't matter if you're a recruit or whoever you are, in this, anytime that you have, great adversity, great challenges, great opportunity. So that part of it, if you're not waking up every day saying, hey, man, this really sucks, this is awesome, because there's going to be some great opportunity that comes out of this, right? And if you're waiting around for someone to tell you what to do, then you're missing it, right? So I think there's this idea, you just have to right away as a program, we recognize that this is going to be different and difficult. And as we know that right away, then how do we thrive, adapt, and overcome and pursue our goals in this environment? And I've said it a couple of times, but again, our goals are not, our circumstances aren't bigger than our goals. Circumstances are not bigger than our mission. So having that kind of mindset and just say, we got to find a way. We talk to the guys about that all the time. We got to find a way to do hard things. There's a lot of mantras in our programs. Band of birds, that means we got to be there for each other, right? So you got to be there for each other. You got to over communicate, because it's a different style of connecting with people. Well, we're doing it like this, so I think that's been the biggest thing is you got to, and if you don't know the answer, seek wise counsel, right? If you don't know, if you just really don't know, then ask somebody. And we did that too, when we were doing what we were doing, and then it's like, well, I think this is the right thing. I think we're making progress. I think we're being, pretty proactive, and I think we're on the edge of where things are at, but I'm not sure. So seek counsel, get validation from other people, find people that are doing the things you want to do, as far as find people that have had success or that have a history of success, and ask them, what do I need to do? What's it look like to be in this situation? I mean, this is new and unique even to me, right? In my years, we had 9/11 in my lifetime. That was, I remember. I barely remember the Vietnam War, but I can only imagine that the Great Depression was pretty damn challenging, right? And probably as much or more so than what we're going through right now. And that generation found a way to get through the Great Depression and become the greatest generation, right? So that part, history's full of these situations where it's, there's difficult and challenging times, and everybody's gonna have them in their life. Just because maybe it's not the pandemic for you, but maybe it's you lost a loved one, maybe you're battling addiction or depression, right? Maybe you're the racial tensions, maybe you're on the other side of that, right? So it's not just, you don't need a pandemic, for an opportunity to get better. And one of the coaches sent me a text right away. I'm like, hey, I love, this is awesome. Nothing better than, a major catastrophe to find opportunities for growth and advancement. Like I love these types of situations, because for me personally, in all my lives, the hardest things I've gone through in my life, I always come out the better side in a better situation and better for it. Didn't like going through it. Doesn't mean I have to like it, but I've always been better for it. So that's my personal take on it.
I get it. That's good. Another question has to deal with walk-ons, and I don't even know if you allow walk-ons, how it works for your program. So maybe take us through that. The question is, what are the keys to being a walk-on? So give us a little info there.
It's going to be a little bit more challenging for us again, with some of as our program continues to grow, and as we get a little bit of a laser focus, narrow focus on where we want to go with goals. The most important thing is that we got everybody in the program that has the same laser focus on the same goals, right? So what's your reason for being a walk-on? Do you want to be part of the program because you want to be an NCAA national champion? Then you're probably the right type of guy. That's the most important thing. But if you're just, hey, I kind of like wrestling, I want to be part of something else at the Air Force Academy, I wrestled in high school, it's fun. Again, I think I would ask you to reevaluate, your why. Like, why do you want to put the program? And then we do an extremely great job of recruiting. Coach Heilman's recruited 5 of our last 6 recruiting classes have been ranked in the top 25 in the country. So our national rank. This last one came in at number 27. So we're out there and we're looking. And quite honestly, if we didn't recruit you, it's because we met the needs of our programs, right? Either weight class needs or guys that we felt were going to make a major impact in our program. So that part of it, if we didn't recruit you and you're walking on, the expectation is that you become the hardest working guy in the room. And I can tell you that we got 2 great success stories about guys that walked on our team. And one is Zen Ikihara. He walked on our team and he went from being a walk-on to immediately he was one of the hardest working guys in the room, to when he graduated, the hardest working guy in the room, to being a guy that was a 2-time starter, a match away from making the NCAA tournament, and our team captain, right? So he went from walk-on to team captain, almost made the national tournament, to a starter. And another great walk-on story we have is Vance Hawk. And Vance Hawk would walk out of wrestling practice soaking wet, dripping, and he would drag himself to the pool or the weight room, and he would do another grueling workout for an hour, hour and a half, as he prepared himself for selection to be a combat rescue officer, which he's doing now. So I think that part, like, why do you want to walk on? And if you're going to walk on the team, and you don't have the credentials that some of our recruited athletes have, multi-time state championship, then you got to have some other intangibles, work ethic, warrior ethos, leadership, academically, you got to be self-sustaining, those types of things. And that's kind of harsh stuff to say, but again, we're an elite program in the Big 12 Conference, United States Air Force Academy, and it's not for everybody.
Yep, that's good. Good word. How can alumni help you during this time? I know that you guys, wrestling is one of those sports where there's a really good brotherhood as far as everyone's concerned. But how can alumni who might be watching this help out your program in any way?
Yeah, that's a unique question, and I'm surprised that you got it actually from alumni. I'm assuming that question came from alum, because from my perspective, our alumni has been incredible. They've been incredible through this pandemic. They've been incredible always. They're engaged. They're involved. They support us financially. They show up to our events. They come back and they talk to our guys. When we communicate with them via email, via newsletter, they communicate back. So I feel like our alumni has been, they've been incredibly supportive and engaged. We did one thing I'd like to do. We did a virtual happy hour with the guys from the 90 in that kind of 90s range. And number one, it was a blast. Number two, we made some new connections to the program we haven't done before. The feedback I got was it was incredible. I reached out to the early teens, the 2013-ish guys. They're trying to put one together, but General Wolf is trying to put one together for maybe the guys around his era, 60s, the mid 60s. But if I could do, that's a tool that we need to do moving forward, is using these new tools of virtual meetings and happy hours to get face to face and have a conversation, right? Where it's back and forth, not just text messages or that part. But I think continue to be involved in our program now. Stay involved. Understand the environment. You understand that COVID-19, the environment, the economic impacts of COVID-19 is going to be felt everywhere, including United States Air Force Academy Wrestling and the Air Force RTC. So if you've ever had some passion or needed a compelling reason, why to give back and support financially, there's probably never, outside of sequestration, there's probably never been a better opportunity to do that. So, but with that being said, I'd turn that question right back and say, it's not your job to serve us. It's our job to serve you. It's my job to serve you. So, what can I do? What can we do to do a better job of serving the alumni? Would be the question back.
That's good. And if your email's on the website, so people can get it and they can call you directly. Final question is, what are your goals going into the year? And I'll also give you an opportunity if there's anything else you wanted to speak to.
And the goals are the same every year. 6 national qualifiers, 10 guys on the podium at the Big 12s, NCAA All-Americans, NCAA National Champions, beat Army, beat Navy. Continue to run a mission first program, graduate and commission officers of character and integrity prepared for combat for the United States Air Force. So those goals haven't shifted. They've grown a little bit over the last 6 years, but they haven't changed. And we're not going to take our eye off the target. We're not going to lower the bar. It's only going to increase. I think we have the athletes in our program to do it. We have an extremely young team. A lot of exciting results. We didn't have the one major result we wanted was, athletes at the NCAA tournament and get all 10 guys on the podium, but we got 4. But there's some exciting results. There's some exciting results, and there's some exciting things pointing to what this team is capable of. Jared Van Vliet beating Whitcraft. Sidney Flores is extremely talented, was in the national rankings all year long. So we're looking forward to getting him back. Cody Fippen jumps on the stage, beats 3 national ranked guys, makes the semifinals of the Big 12s as a freshman, right? First semifinals we've had. Jake Thompson goes wrestles the number 1 guy in the country at the Big 12 tournament to 11-10 match. Lenny Peterson continues to be a guy, he has, multiple ranked wins Dylan, I'm just going back to our starters we have coming back. But Dylan Martinez proved to be an extremely talented freshman that grew throughout the year that I think has the ability to wrestle at a really high level. Short Trey Brisker can, he has the work ethic, he has the mindset, mentality, and the commitment to be as good as he wants to be and achieve all his goals. Randy Manyweather graduates, will replace that, with him, but we have a lot of good, strong men, a lot of guys prepared, looking forward to the opportunity at that weight class. At 174, Cody Surratt, returning Big 12 medalist, was, I think, 5th in the country in pins, right? He's a dangerous guy who's gaining some confidence and some belief in his goals. Jake Thompson, we talked about already, but extremely talented. Casey Jumps coming back after another good year, one of the toughest guys in our program, committed to getting better, finding a way. Kane Hutchinson in the national rankings at different times during the season last year, again, can wrestle at the highest level. And then we got a great group coming in. So I can't wait till next week when these guys get here. The group that's coming up from our prep school special, they're going to do some incredible things in our program. I don't think I can say their names yet via NCAA rules, but until they're here. But, we're excited about the preppies coming up, and we're excited about the guys coming in direct, and we're excited about the guys coming back. There's not a guy in our program that can't make a difference. There's not a guy in our program that can't be the starter, and there's not a guy in our program that can't stand on the podium at Big 12s, punch your ticket to NCAAs, and get on the podium there. That's the type of room we have right now. So I know that creates a little bit of stress sometimes for those guys because it's competitive. We can only start 10 guys. We can only send 10 guys to the Big 12 championships. But you can't be in our program right now, and you can't survive if you're not competing at a really high level. So I'm really excited about the future of Air Force Wrestling.
That's awesome. Listening to you makes me excited, and I'm sure all the fans out there is excited as well. So, Sam, thank you so much for the time, and hopefully we'll see you back on the mats here shortly.
Hey, Brian, one last thing I just want to talk about. I'm sorry, you said I get one thing, and I know we're probably running over time, but we got to, we keep talking about the great organization we have, but again, I just want to say thank you to our administration that allows us to have that, right, from our leadership in the athletic department, but also the people that we talked about surrounding ourselves, our athletes, with great people. And I don't think I mentioned, the coaching staff that we have around these guys, and Joe Johnston, who does an amazing job, new to our program, associate head coach, University of Iowa, pedigree, NCAA All-American, national finalist, Chris Heilman, tireless worker, 3-time All-American, great recruiter, an athlete's coach, and he's committed to our goals, and he pours into it. Dustin Kilgore, our volunteer assistant, head RTC coach, also NCAA national champion. There's not very many of those on coaching staffs, right? Especially at service academies. And a guy that's been there and done it in the sport of wrestling. And it's, so our coaching staff and then our medical staff, the commitment they show to our program and our athletes, Miss Kristen, Doc Robbins, Dr. Wyrath, Colonel McGinty, and then Bryce, our strength coach, and then Dan, our SID. So those are the intimate people that are involved in the day-to-day workings. Again, this thing is not just the athletes. It's not just one coach. It takes an organization to have a successful program. And we're not coaching a team. We're building a program here. And we can't build a program if we don't have all the pieces involved. And that includes guys like you and Adam too, that do such a great job promoting our program. So what we do and what our kid athletes do, we couldn't do if we didn't have all the people behind the athletes, and then the extended family of our families, Colorado Springs community, USA Wrestling. The list goes on forever, but this thing is massive. Air Force Wrestling is massive. The Long Blue Line, it is a massive organization. It's got a lot of momentum, and it just doesn't go anywhere unless we have everybody, from all the great organizations, marketing, ticketing, just anything you can think of in our athletic department on our campus, they're pouring into Air Force Wrestling, and we're getting better. So just want to, make sure we acknowledge those people, say thank you to anybody who has an impact, and understand that we know that we're just, as an organization, we can't do what we do. We don't have everybody's support from, the different facets of the program.
Sure thing. Sam, as always, great talking to you. And we're looking forward to it because we know that Air Force Wrestling is on the way up. So thanks again for taking the time.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for making time.